Welcome to Monday Jazz and Conversation, presented by a collaboration of 4 nonprofit organizations: Gold Coast Jazz Society, South Florida Jazz, Sunshine Jazz Organization, and the Miami Jazz Cooperative, all of whom are dedicated to bringing jazz to South Florida audiences. Each Monday, Wendy Peterson and Nikki Orta feature the music and talk to the country's most talented and interesting jazz musicians.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Fedchuk to the Hang.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
The amazing and beautiful and the world's best person, Brenda Alford.
Hi, Brenda.
Live up to that.
Okay, I got some living to do.
Please welcome to Jazz and Conversation the amazing Joe Donato. Joey D.
Hello.
How are you? I'm so
Good evening,
sad
ladies and
that
gentlemen.
we
This
gave
is
you
Ralph
stress.
Edwards, and tonight, it's Joe Donato. This is your life.
And now, the hosts of Monday Jazz and Conversation, Wendy Peterson and Nikki Orta.
Hello,
Hi,
and happy
everyone.
Monday. Yes, as you saw at the very beginning, we were having technicky difficulties.
It happens. Seems to be happening the older I get, for some reason.
More and more frequently. it
Yes,
happens.
yes, it is.
Well, we're excited you're here with us tonight. We have a very fun show for you tonight. We are going
This
to
is
be
a special one.
We are going to be talking to the one and only Pete Barbutti.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up watching him on the Tonight Show.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And, you know, just finding him hysterical. Before I even knew what jazz was, I think I knew that there was that face.
I know, right?
Yeah, but yeah. So we're gonna get to hang out and talk with him and find out all his deepest, darkest secrets. I don't know if he realizes that, but surprise! No.
Exactly. But for those of you who either haven't seen this in a while or are not familiar with him, here's Pete playing a very little played instrument, I think.
Yes.
You'll see what we're talking about.
I swear, Tommy, I love it. Tommy takes a night off work to do this show. So we're going to do for you this little number on the cigar, and we hope you enjoy a little serious music. Hey, Tommy, you want to hear a great Indian joke? You didn't hear him. Tommy said you told it wrong. Okay, we're going to do this. Give me a B flat. We'll tune up. We're on our way. Okay, be natural. No, don't play. Just be natural. Okay, hit it. Here we go. A little serious cigar music. Yeah. Get it, baby. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, huh? Yeah. You tell it. Yeah, get it, baby. God. Hurry up.
There you go.
There you go. That's what you're in for this evening. So without further ado, let us welcome to the Hang the amazing Pete Barbutti.
Thank you, Wendy and Nikki. Thank you both.
Hey, thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea what you got yourself into.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That kind of comedy to me is just timeless.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you. I can't. I mean, it just seemed like you were going to pass out at any moment. I mean, that really has.
Yeah,
gotta
it's not only that, but it kills a good cigar. It just yeah, you're finished with it at that point. So.
All for the gag, huh?
Yeah, all for the
my
joke. Yeah,
God.
and I'm in the Union Book here in Vegas under cigar and under broom.
Oh,
Because I played the broom.
For real?
Yeah.
On
I'm on the Union
Facebook.
Book, and I actually got, I performed once for the Academy of Recording Artists, the Grammys, and they gave me a special award for being the world's greatest broom player.
Well, one of our members, actually it was Gary Campbell. He asked if you would be playing the broom tonight.
Oh.
Well, so I know you get this all the time, but when we were talking to Rick Katz, he was saying, "Man, I spoke to Pete Barbutti."
Yeah, well, that's
what is it really?
Well, it's first of all, it's really spelled with only one T.
For real?
Yeah, that's the family name. It was Italian. My father was Italian, my mother Irish, but my father spelled it with the one T, and that may not have even have been correct when my grandfather came over to Ellis Island. It spoke very little English, so it may have been a D or something. But in any event, it was Barbutti. And then I did the first television show I did with Steve Allen.
Yeah.
And the videographer put an extra T in there. And it didn't appear on the monitor, so I didn't know it at the time. And I was working nights, so I never saw the Steve Allen show. So I had done about 4 Steve Allen shows, and then finally I saw one, and the name was spelled with the extra T. And so I called them, and the agency and everybody said, "You can't change it now. They'll think it's somebody else." And so I'm stuck with the extra T. But it's in
Do you
Italian.
charge extra for it?
In Italian, it's actually Barbutti because there are no long U's, But it's my grandfather and everything from the time they came over said, "We're American now. It's Barbutti," So.
Wow.
Got it. And
somebody made me a tape once. Excuse me for interrupting, Nicky, but somebody made me a tape once of introductions on the Tonight Show, and there was about 30 of them, and about maybe 10 were Carson, and the other 20 were guest hosts, and there were just, here's Pete Barbutti, here's Pete Barbutti, here's Pete Barbutti, here's Pete. No two of them were the same.
Tutti frutti.
Yeah, there was better one right after the other, and none of them were the same. So.
And you're okay with either one?
It doesn't bother me.
As long as the check clears, we're
That's
good.
That's all.
Exactly. Did you come from a musical family?
Not really. My father played the violin a little bit, but he was terrible. And there was a time, my generation, where it was first or second or third generation from Europe, and so it was protocol for all of the ladies in the family to take piano lessons, and the men in the family had to play the accordion,
right?
Or something like, or the guitar. And if you were Jewish, of course, it was the violin. All the girls had to take, and the men had to take violin lessons. But it was part of extending the cultural influence of the European to the new world. And so my two sisters studied piano. The teacher would come to the house in those days, and they weren't very good, and they would beat on me because after they'd leave, I'd run in and play the lesson by ear, and they'd get mad and chase me out of there. So that was it. And then when I was about 9 or 10, I got an accordion. And that was, the beginning, because I was incredibly shy to that point. I mean,
really?
Unbelievably shy. Oh,
No
terribly.
kidding.
I mean, I remember one incident when I needed shoes. I was too embarrassed to go into the shoe store. So I'd sit outside in the car, and my sisters would have to run in and bring the shoes out and try them on me, and then bring the next pair out and do it. I was unbelievably shy until I started playing the accordion, and that put me in front of people, and that's how it started.
Yeah, so I read. Well, actually, I watched the little clip that we had where it talked about how the accordion was your first instrument.
Yeah.
And then you started like accordion schools.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I don't know how I did it now, but I was going to high school, playing in the band there. I was very lucky to have a music teacher who was very young and hip, and loved music and loved jazz. And I had my best friend in high school was a kid named Charlie Coleman, piano player. And Charlie was way above his pay grade. I mean, Charlie he was a junior when I was a sophomore, and from that point he graduated a year before me, but we were inseparable. And Charlie we'd both go downtown to the record store. If you remember, you could take a record in a booth and play the old 78s or something. Then if you liked it, you'd buy it, or you'd try another one. And Charlie and I would go down, and he'd put on a Stan Kenton record. I mean, how complicated that band was.
Yeah.
And he'd play the record a couple of times, and he'd go home and actually score it for a jazz band. I mean,
people like that.
Yeah, he was a freak, man. He was really. And Charlie and Gene Morris, the band leader, the teacher, my instructor there, they taught me about how the chords were voiced differently, that you don't play a G chord the same way every time, that you voice the chord differently, and that some notes, the overtones that are produced automatically, you don't have to play them. Your ear hears those automatically, and so you leave those out and you do the other thing, and it was like the beginning, and it was a revelation for me. So, but when I was going to school, I was working at the local club. I had a little group, and I was working at the Glass Hat in Scranton. It was like the place, and then I was also teaching at this accordion school in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, which was 15 miles away, and obviously I didn't have a license or a car, so I'd take the bus. And it was a rural area, Carbondale. So sometimes they'd pay me with a chicken, or they'd pay me with 2 bags of potatoes or something.
You took the chicken home on the bus with you?
Yeah, on the bus. It was like something out of a movie made in Central America or something,
Oh my gosh.
But I don't know how I did it. I mean, I don't think I slept for like 3 years or something.
So the thing is about you, when you try to go back and watch the clips and stuff, you were always playing different instruments. So you started on the accordion.
Yeah, I started on the accordion. Well, you go to piano from accordion because the accordion, the right side is the same. It's a piano accordion, technically it's called. But the left side, the bass is pre-programmed. So you're limited to what they give you. Now, it's great in the beginning because, it saves time and energy. And
it sounds good, like you just press the button.
Yeah, it's great, yeah. So, but it does limit, a C chord to a C chord.
Exactly.
You go to the piano and you have the same right hand, but the left hand you get a little more innovative with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when did you start with the drums?
Well, when I was in high school, the band leader when I was a freshman, for another subject, you had to take an elective subject, so I said I'll take band. And so he tried us out on different instruments, blow a note on this trumpet, blow a note on this trombone, try this and try that. So then he got to the snare drum and he played something. He said, "Can you play that?" And so I played it, and he played it. No matter what he played, I could play it. So I said, "Okay, I'll make a drummer out of you."
Wow.
So accordion players are notoriously bad sight readers for some reason. They learn to play without looking at the music. I don't know why, but some of them are great, but a lot of them have very poor readers. And so, and like myself, I was not a good reader and playing. I could figure chords out by hearing them. But then I got switched over to piano, and that sort of changed everything. It opened it up, and I could see more and hear more. And it was a revelation. I just, from there, I played the piano, and then our bass player got drafted with the group I had on the road, and so I had to learn to play bass. I played Fender, not
I was
real
intrigued
bass.
by this picture.
Yeah.
So Nicky is a bass player. So
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
So
Oh,
he
yeah.
immediately was very
I'm like,
excited.
what?
Yeah, well,
and then I realized it would be probably easier to ask you which instruments you don't play.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, trumpet I picked up on. I just bought a trumpet in a pawn shop, and I worked with enough good trumpet players, and they'd say, "Don't do this or do this," and so I was never a great trumpet player.
You were good enough to be the third trumpet player.
Yeah, fourth.
That's
trumpet.
right.
right. Not good enough to be the third.
Not the third.
Yeah, I had the last group I had, the Millionaires. I actually played trumpet on it. Played lead on the. It was 3 horns. You might remember one of the guys was Richie Madison, who created the music program at North Florida at the university and won every national award. Richie's passed on now, but he was a brilliant musician. It was a great group. It was 3 horns, 3 rhythm, and a girl singer. And we were breaking it up. We were together like 4 weeks, and we had a contract with Capitol to do an album. And I mean, we were just going. And then one night, the piano player just got tired and got in his car and drove from Lake Tahoe back to his home in San Diego. And the girl singer was worried about her husband, and she went home, and the drummer didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, and the group broke up. And there I was, had 3 kids at the time. My wife was pregnant with the 4th.
Oh my gosh.
And we were living in a rented house in Las Vegas. And I had signed for all the uniforms for this group.
And this was the Millionaires?
Yeah.
So this was like the vocal group you had.
Yeah, it was everything.
About this.
Yeah, it was vocal group and musical, and it was a wonderful group. It was very, very strong. And we were knocking out everybody in Vegas. All the celebrities are coming to see me. It was a very unique group. And then it broke up like overnight, and there I was. And So I remember I called Frank Ross, who was one of the Mary Kay Trio. If you remember them, they sort of owned Vegas right after Louis Prima. Mary Kay Trio was like the biggest musical group in Vegas, and they were a trio. And in the '60s, they were getting like $25,000 a week for a trio in the '60s. You know, wow. They were huge. And so I called Frank Ross, and he said, "You got to start working, do a single. I'll put you in touch with an agent." So this agent named George called me from California. He says, "All right, I got a date for you, 2 weeks in Spokane, Washington." I never heard of Spokane, Washington. He said, "It's a place called the Stockyards Inn." I assume a steakhouse from the name, right? And he said, "You'll be the first act to work there. It'll be a big deal. It pays $200 a week." Wasn't much, but at least I was working. I could send money home for my family.
Yeah.
And so this agent said, "Okay, you open a week from today or whatever." And I said, "George, I'm embarrassed to ask you, but I don't have the money to get there. Can you send me the money for a bus ticket?"
Gosh.
So he said, "All right, I'll send you the money." I said, "Send it special delivery." He said, "Don't worry, it'll get there." Well, it didn't get there. And the day came because the bus took like 2.5 days to get there. You know?
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, "George, the ticket didn't come and the bus has just left." He said, "Look, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I'm not making any money out of it anyway." And he hung up on me. So the agent, who was actually lived in Spokane, who was booking the act through him, he called me. He says, "You got to be here, man. I mean, I live here. My name is, my family's lived in this town for generations."
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know what to tell you." His name was John Powell. I said, "Mr. Powell, I'm so sorry." He says, "I'll send you an airline ticket." I said, "All right." So the airline ticket was $205. So before I got off the plane, I was $5 in the hole after. And he took me out to see this place. First of all, he thought I was a Martian. I showed up in Spokane, which is a real conservative, a lumber mining town from the old days. I showed up with long hair and a goatee and Italian shoes and a raglan raincoat and he just took one look at me and he said, "Man, this isn't a jazz gig, please. This isn't a jazz gig." He kept saying it. So I went out to this club, and it was named the Stockyards Inn because it was in the middle of the stockyards. I mean, there were cows all over the place, and you had to walk across the planks over the steer guano, and I looked up, and he had a big sign, "Direct from Las Vegas," and he misspelled Las Vegas.
Oh, my God.
And it was like, oh, man. And his name was Rocky Rothrock. And his dad was a millionaire from the old mining and timber days. And Rocky said, "Dad, I think I'd like to have a club." And Rocky said, "Here's a bunch of money. Start a club." He didn't know.
Oh, my gosh.
So I went in this room, and it was a long, skinny room, but it was workable. And he said, "What do you need?" I said, "Well, a piano bar." "What's that?" I said, "Boy."
Oh.
So I said, "Well, it's sort of a bar, and the people can sit around and talk while you're playing." And, "Oh, okay, I got you." So I went in that night, and he had an upright piano up against the wall, an old antique upright piano, and he built a bar around the back of me. and I was staring at it, and I said, "Man, I got to do it." I needed the money. So I'd play, and the people were looking at my back, And
That's crazy.
And then I said to him,
You put a mirror in the front of it.
"Oh,
So
well, that's what he did the second day." I said, "I can't see the people," and he went and got a mirror, and he gave me a dowel. He says, "See, you can move that mirror any way you want."
Oh my God.
And then I said, "How about a light there?" So he hung a light from the ceiling, a cord. It was like a pool room, a lamp, and it was. I'd turn it on. I go, da, 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 I turn it on. It was like a 100-watt bulb. Everybody in the room would go, "Whoa!" It's like seeing a train coming at you. And then the kiss of death was, I said, if I had a microphone. He says, "Well, the sound system is in every room. All we got to do is get your mic." So he got me one of those little mics like from the old movies, Broderick Crawford, Highway Patrol. You push a button.
My gosh.
Calling all cars.
Oh my God.
And the crowning blow was I had the mic, and I was now turned around and entertaining, and the room was packed. The people were starting to understand a little bit of what I was talking about. And then right in the middle of a story comes over the same speaker I'm using. "Johnson, party of 4, 2 chicken fried sticks and 2, come."
Oh, my gosh.
I was like, and I went ballistic. I started to scream, and the owner came in and said, "What's the trouble here?" I said, "I'm trying to do a routine." Anyway, they didn't understand it. And so Rocky said, "Well, we're going to end the entertainment." So he booked me across town, this guy, and he says, I'm going to get you 400 a week. Oh, man, I was like, that was real money. And the place was the Plantation Club. It was also in Spokane, but it was owned by a guy named Perry Williams, who was a great guy. And Perry said, when you work for me, you'll have a band behind you. I said, great. So the band consisted of an organ player named Tony Pasco. He's a great guy, but everything he played sounded like a roller rink. It all had that same sound. So it was Tony Pasco, and the rest of the band was a drummer, and that was Perry Williams, the owner.
Oh, my God.
And so I go up opening night. I said, at least I'm partly in show business now. So I go out and I'm singing a song to open the show. I don't know, like Lady is a Tramp or something, And they're playing behind me, and I'm used to having these like grade A Mike Woodford on piano. I'm used to having these monsters behind me,
Sure.
And here I'm doing, going back like a couple of generations, but I'm in show business, so I'm not going to quit. So I'm singing along, and they're pumping it out back there. Not very good, but they're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
And right in the middle, the drums stop. So I'm not going to turn around and say, what the hell happened? So I just keep going, keep singing. And Tony's behind me with that organ. And out of the corner of my eye, I see my drummer walking down the alley, goes to the front, he picks up 2 menus, party of 2. He seats people in the middle of my opening number. It was like, what's happening,
That kind of stuff still happens.
Yeah, anyway, he was a great guy, and I loved working for him. And then I got booked into Seattle during the World's Fair.
Oh.
And that's when some celebrities started to come in, and it started. I had a great trio over there in Seattle, killer musicians.
How did you find out you were funny?
Well, that started when back in Scranton when I was working with a group called the Overtones. It was guitar, Teddy Volts on guitar. I forget the bass player's name.
Of course.
They're forgettable.
Teddy something or other. Usually I remember, and I was playing accordion. And so this was a real jazz group. We played nothing but Lenny Tristano and Miles Davis, and
Nice.
I mean all the hip songs. And we were so hip that if people started dancing, we'd change the tempo. We didn't want to be.
I think that's called cruel.
Yeah, right.
I think that's called cruel. It's not.
Yeah, it is. But for us, that was like, how dare you understand what we're doing,
Exactly.
Of course.
And so they would push me up front, say, you announce the songs, because they were even more introverted than was I. And so I'd go up and I got sick of saying, here's a song written by so-so and lyrics by Johnny Mercer, a thing called Midnight Sun. And then we'd play it, and then I got so sick of that, so I'd start making up stuff. Here's a song written by Johnny Mercer and Clyde Beatty. They're a small fishing boat in the Mississippi River, and Marie Dressler came up, and I would put all, and the audience would turn around and start to listen to the introductions and applaud, and then they'd turn away when the music was played. Like the music was, everybody'd say, quit playing that music,
Oh
so that got me
gosh.
started a little bit at a time,
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me show a few clips, and then we're going to come back and pick up on this, because your career is,
Incredible.
Well, it's
expansive.
bizarre. Yeah, it's bizarre.
So here are a couple of treats.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. With the help of the very wonderful, beautifully talented Les Brown Orchestra, I'd like now very much to sing for you a little song I enjoy very much. Ready, orchestra? Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, don't play. Just go like this. 1, 2, 3, 3. When I grow too old to dream, I'm gonna have you to remember. That's it. And when I grow too old to dream, your love, baby, gonna live in my heart. Hey, your love is gonna live. Hey, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 Please wait, I'm not singing. I've got my finger caught in the guitar. Should you tell the difference between rock and roll and pain?
You're from California, too? Okay. I didn't tell you, this is true now. This really happened. I got a buddy of mine, he's got a dog, Great Dane. He's a beautiful dog, too, you know what I mean? I mean, they're gentle. They're big, but they're gentle. I mean, you'd be afraid of them, but they're nice dogs. Okay, all of a sudden, the dog started to bite people, bit the mailman, bit the UPS guy who's trying to deliver a package. Who the hell else? He bit somebody else. Who did he bite? He bit somebody else. The meter maid. I bit the meter maid. He was a different place, yeah. You bit her out near Henderson. Okay. Yeah. And this dog, like, went crazy. So he called the vet and he says, what the hell am I going to do? I love this dog. He's like family. I don't want to have him destroyed. And the vet says, you don't have a problem. Bring that dog down to the clinic and we'll neuter him. We'll castrate him and he'll be real peaceful. So he puts the leash on a dog. He's taking him to the clinic. It's not too far, you know. He gets about halfway. The dog breaks the leash, goes running down the road, jumps on some poor wino in a door stoop, bites the bejiminies out of the wino, almost killed the poor wino. And the guy gets there and pulls the Great Dane off, and he says to the wino, he says, geez, I feel terrible about this, pal. I swear to God, I never meant for this dog to bite nobody again. In fact, I was just taking him to the vets to have him castrated. And the wino looked up and said, why the hell don't you have his teeth pulled? I could tell him a block away he wasn't going to screw me. Had a big scene down in Vegas at the airport. I can't tell you which airlines, but they were offloading the luggage from a big 747, you know, and it came in from Chicago. And the luggage is coming off in one of those fiberglass cages you ship animals in. There's a cage came off. There was a little poodle in it, and the dog was dead. This is a sick thing, but it's true. And the guys panicked. They said, uh-oh, lawsuit time, you know. So they called the luggage manager, and they said, when somebody comes looking for a little white poodle, you know, stall them, give us a little time. Sure enough, a little old lady came up and said, gee, my dog is a little white poodle. I was shipping him in. I started in Boston. I changed planes in Chicago. And the guy in the luggage, you know, that little office where you're claiming, he said, wait a minute, let me check. She couldn't see the computer. He went, there's nothing on the screen. He says, oh, here it is, ma'am. It just didn't make the switch in Chicago. It'll be here tomorrow. We'll have your dog. She said, are you sure? I'm worried. I guarantee you, come out to the airport, we'll have it. In the meantime, they went all over town and they bought a dog, looked exactly like hers, and they put it in a cage. And she came out and they said, here's your dog. She said, that's not my dog. He said, of course it is. She said, no, it's not. My dog was dead. I was bringing him home to bury him.
That's just wrong.
Dog stories.
Yeah, yeah. So you got over your shyness by performing. And
Yeah, that like changed everything. And then when I got into high school, I was, you know, I had bands I was practicing with, and I was also I was first chair percussionist for Pennsylvania All-State Band, and I mean I got so serious. I was working all the time. I played with the University of Scranton Band. I played with the De Molay Band, the American Legion Band. I was just working, not just playing, you know, percussion. And I played with the Philharmonic. I played timpani and that with the Philharmonic, and it was I was just going all the time.
it sounds like music came easy to you. I mean, you know,
Well,
not everybody can be a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah, but I think the big thing is a lot of guys just don't listen. I mean, I've been so lucky to work with great players, you know. I mean, when I started doing the Steve Allen show, I got a call from Nat King Cole to
Right.
go on the road with Nat, and I was with Nat for a couple of years on the road. I mean, listening to him play piano
Sure.
was
Yeah.
he was one of the great geniuses that ever lived, man. And listening you listen to him play every night, and then we were inseparable. We had he always made sure we had the connecting rooms in the hotel, and the door was open. We flew. The rest of the group traveled by bus and truck, they call it, you know.
Yeah.
And we'd meet him there, but we were you know, for that time we were inseparable.
And
I
at
just,
this point, were you doing the comedy with music?
I was doing comedy with the show, but I was still playing. You know,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many agents and everything and managers have said, get away from the music.
Oh my
You
gosh.
shouldn't be playing the music. You should be just doing the I said, no, man, you know, that's why I'm here. It's
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think of yourself more of a musician or a comedian?
I don't know.
They're-
You know, I tell you this, I'm more impressed with musicians that I meet and know, I mean big music, than I am with like Hollywood people.
Yeah.
You know, like celebrities and everything. And in fact, when I was working with Nat King Cole, it was a theater across from Disneyland called Melodyland. I think now it's some kind of church or something, but it was a theater in the Round. It was a very big place. It was a tough gig. It was 7 nights and 2 matinees.
Wow.
And we were there for like 2 weeks, so it was like a lot of shows. And that carried full orchestra, strings and everything.
Amazing.
And I was playing the Fender bass, as a joke just to get started on there. And so there was a guy who would carry the amp down, and he'd put the Fender up against it and plug it in and put it on standby. So when I got down, and it was always out of tune, so I'd do a joke about tuning it up and everything. But closing night, I go down to get the stuff because we were all exhausted. And Nat said, we're going to have a rap party. So, and I was sharing a dressing room with Nat because there were a lot of people in the show. So the other guy, the stagehand, is carrying them, but I have the Fender bass, the chord, and all my books. It's like a 28-piece orchestra, so I got all these books. And this little guy comes out of Nat's dressing room, and he stops me. He says, I want to tell you how much I love you, man. He's going on. And I didn't mean to blow him off, but I said, I'm sorry, I can't shake your hand, man. He said, no, I just wanted to tell you how much I love you. So, thanks. So I walk in the room, and Nat says, did you say hello to Johnny Mercer?
Oh, my.
I said, Johnny Mercer, man. I almost had a heart attack. I said, the greatest lyricist that ever lived. Anyway, I met him at a later thing and apologized, but he thought it was a joke. He didn't mind it on. Then one of my other great stories that I'll never forget, I had a TV series in Toronto called Pete's Place, and it took place in Vegas. It was about a guy who owns a nightclub off the strip in Vegas, and everything goes wrong. The roof leaks, the band doesn't know the right song, everything, And I had a great group with me. There's a rhythm section from the Rob McConnell band, the Boss Brass band.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the piano player was a kid from Winnipeg. Gary Gross was his name, and he was an excellent player. Gary wasn't a pure bebopper, but he's one of those guys who knew every song in every key, so I didn't have to worry. In the middle of my spot, if I said Moon River in B, it was there. I didn't have to say, do you know Moon River, or do you know, give me a country song in G. He knew exactly what I was talking about, so Gary was priceless. And we were doing 2 shows a day. It was a sitcom. And man, I was exhausted. I was also writing the show. And so I had Sunday off, and I was announcing to everybody, don't wake me if the hotel burns. That's fine. Just let it burn. And so I was going on, and Gary came up to me and said, geez, I hate to ask you this after that big speech. He said, but I got a friend. He's a big fan. He wants to meet you. I said, oh, Gary, don't do that, man. He said, he wants us to come to his house for dinner. No, his kids will be there. I'll have to entertain them. I just want to. And so I said, no, I can't do it. And so then I loved this guy, Gary, so much, and he was such a good friend. I thought about it, and I went back about an hour later. I said, Gary, yeah, I'll do it, man. I'll do it. And so he said, great. So he picked me up at the hotel. We stopped, and we got some wine. And then we drove out, and he said, you knock on the door, I'll get the wine out of the trunk of the car. So I went up, and I casually knocked on the door, and the door opened, and it was Oscar Peterson.
No.
And my heart stopped. I said, what? And he gave me a big hug. He says, I'm such a big fan of yours. I thought, what's wrong with this picture? I want to tell you, I learned an anecdote which I never forgot. After dinner, we went down the basement. He has 2 Steinways there.
Wow.
And he played for me, and I'm looking at it thinking, why does this look possible? This is not possible for a human being to do this. I mean, he was just a freak.
Yeah.
And he was playing. And so we were talking after he played a couple of tunes, and I said, do you know an old Sinatra song called As Long as There's Music? And he said, no, I never heard that. I said, let me play it for you. So I sat down and I played it, and he stood behind me. I learned it from my piano player on the road for years, Gus Mancuso. It's a great song. The chord changes are beautiful. So I played it for him. He's standing behind me. He says, oh, wait a minute. What was that change there? I said, it goes right to the B natural. And he reached around me. He said, oh, do it once more. And I did it again. And then he sat down and played the hell out of it.
Oh, wow.
And then I was viewing this third person thinking, I'm teaching Oscar Peterson a song. And then it occurred to me, that's why he's Oscar Peterson. As good as he was, the best in the world, he was still saying, teach me. Give me more. And that's the definition of a real artist. Instead of somebody who says I'm the best,
That's
right.
Yeah.
I want to show a clip. This may be my favorite of the bunch. And I think one of the things I loved about watching you and I love about your whole approach to this is that it always feels like you're one of us. You know, so you do the comedy, but this guy's a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So there are a lot of things that you do that mostly musicians are going to get.
Yeah,
You know, the broader
Right.
joke everyone will catch. But this clip had me in stitches, and it's a Tonight Show thing. Just check this out. Very, very hysterical.
All right, I'd like to play this song, Chicago, and I hope you enjoy a little serious music around here. Let's let it roll! Hey! Tommy, shouldn't it have more of a beat? Be with you in a minute. I got to tune the piano stool. A lot of people don't know you got to tune that up. You don't just sit down and play. It has to be in the same key you're going to play it. I take a little extra time because I happen to have perfect stool. I want that thing just right before I start.
That was, you know, when I there was a stand-up before that all about Chicago, so that's why I did that tune. And I said to Doc says, do you have a chart? I said, no. I said, just, you guys have played this tune a million times in bad arrangements, so when I cue you, just hit a note and hit any note you want. It doesn't matter. Any note you want. So, and they did, and it turned out, you know.
Oh, it's perfect.
Well, I was thinking to myself, it must have killed them though to be.
Well, they were dying laughing, yeah. And every time I did the show, the same thing. They'd say, "Do the fourth trumpet, do the fourth trumpet." You know, that was their favorite. In fact, Ed Shaughnessy and guys wrote on the chart. They have comments on it, you know, and signed it. You know, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
That's so funny. It seems to me that it would be difficult to make that look easy that way. You know, you're just having a good time, but you're playing such hip things. You know.
It's swinging. Yeah, I was thinking cueing it like that and in the middle of keeping the good time.
That's the thing. I mean, at some point, everybody's thinking, oh, he's just going to play, and it's sounding great, and then all of a sudden this happens.
Yeah.
And of course, the side glance on the blues riff just kills me.
Yeah. And when they finally hit it for the last time, it went like this, perfect.
Yeah,
it was so bad, it was like so perfect, you know.
Yeah.
Those things you can't rehearse and you can't plan; they just happen. And I've always found that all through my career, when I work with beboppers, it's just real simple. You know, when I say I'm going to do one chorus of cute with a bassy ending, that's all I have to say.
Right.
They know exactly what I'm talking about. And if I say this, I'm going to do Autumn Leaves, and the only thing I do different in the bridge, like at bar 31, I say I do use a descending whole tone thing, and the bass player says, yeah, I know what you mean. And that's all there is to it. And they
Right.
know, same thing with endings, like Chicago. We never practiced that or anything.
Right.
And they knew. You know, I said to Joe DeBardo, the bass player, I said, Joe, I'm going to use the 1/4 chain. He says, yeah, I know what you mean. That was all I had to say to him, and he knew, and it, you know, it sounded like we had been doing it for years.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. They think along the same line where I'm going, and I've had trios that I've worked with that are so good like that. The guy I had for years, Gus Mancuso, one of my dearest friends. Gus was one of those guys who came out of that clique in upstate New York. Sal Nistico, Joe Romano, Sam Noto, Don Menza. I mean, they all play like animals. They don't have that West Coast thing where you come up front to play a solo and you start to build and you tell a story. These guys from the first note are playing 1,000 notes and they're like take no prisoners. You know,
Yeah.
they all play the same way and they're all brilliant. They're all brilliant.
Oh
They're the
my God.
best.
So, you know what, I'm curious. So the whole reason why we started this show was because of, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what that did for you out in Vegas.
Well, fortunately, I wasn't working a whole lot anymore. You know, I was sort of taking it easy, and unfortunately, my wife had Alzheimer's for the last.
okay.
I went through like it was 6 or 7 total years, and in the beginning, it was just sort of like, I guess with everybody, it's sort of comical. You learn to laugh at it, and
Right.
because there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
And then it got worse and worse. So I, moved into a smaller place, a condo with my son, so he could help out. And so I decided not to take too many gigs. I'd do
Right.
a jazz festival here and there. I did Newport Beach thing for, I don't know, like 10, 12 years in a row. And there was one in Prescott, Arizona, which I do. Mike Vax, the trumpet player, has a good one there. And then I do some comedy things where I work with young comics. And most of them are very respectful of my years in the business, and we get
Yeah.
along great. And I'm really good at editing for some reason. So I'll say to them, what you do is take the word rabbit out of there and put in the word skunk or something,
Right, yeah,
and they know right away, and they're very respectful, and they're great, and they're fun to hang out with. And every Monday now I have breakfast with Shecky Green, the great comedian.
Oh, we have a picture of that.
Do you?
Yes, I think,
Yeah.
apparently this was just a couple of weeks ago. Let me bring that up. Hold on a
Oh
second.
yeah, do that. Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Shecky. Yeah,
That's amazing.
he's 95
Oh
No
my
kidding.
gosh.
and remembers everybody he's ever worked for, and remembers their wives' names, and remembers their kids'
Oh,
names,
my God.
and everything. He has a little trouble with mobility because he broke a hip a couple of years
Okay.
ago, and so he uses a walker just to be sure, but remembers everything. I mean, he talks when he talks about legends. He says, "I used to go to the track with Al Jolson." I said, "Man,
my
that's
gosh.
going back. That's going
Holy
back
cow.
to
Yeah.
vaudeville and burlesque, And one of his best friends was Lou Costello of Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
Wow.
Used to go to the track all the time, and yeah, he knew everybody in the world, and
We
yeah, he's special.
actually, in fact, today one of our musicians down here sent a picture to us of you, and so can we bring that up? Because
Yeah,
I think
sure.
that would be it's just show your Miami connection. So this is
Oh.
when you guys were touring with Frank Sinatra,
And the Peter
Oh
Graves.
yeah,
and this is the Peter Graves, band.
yeah.
And so they sent that to us, saying, "Oh,
Sure
this
is, yeah.
This is when we were." So, and we have one of our watchers asking if you remember a drummer by the name of Ken Whale.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was the first drummer I worked with when I started working, and I was like 18, and I was just wide-eyed and
Yeah.
chick singer, and he just was so lovely to me and steered me away from anybody that was like,
guy. He's a good
he was
guy.
a really good guy. So.
You just used the phrase chick singer, which all musicians do. It's not meant
Yes.
to be derogatory in any sense.
No.
It's just what you call the girl, the chick singer.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing a tour for an agent in L.A., and it was like a whole conglomerate of weird people on the tour. First of all, there were some great people. Johnny Thompson, the magician, who's just brilliant. Buddy Ebsen,
Sure.
who did that show, Beverly Hillbillies, and all.
And Barnaby Jones.
Yeah, Barnaby
Yeah.
Jones. Yeah, Buddy Ebsen, Billy Barty. The midget or little person, as they call him, Billy.
Yeah.
It was a whole bunch of weird people on the show, and one of the people on the show was the singer not Pierre Angeli. Who's the other girl? The Italian girl that came over. She's operatic trained. I'll think of her name anyway. She was on the show, and I referred to her as the chick singer, and she came over and said, "What did you call me?"
Got all offended.
I said, no, the chick singer. She's a chick singer. That's the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. So,
okay.
So for the rest of the tour, the whole thing, she kept saying, "I'm the chick singer." And she thought that was because she came out of opera. She never heard it.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Incidentally, I let me just get this in.
Yeah.
I did a Tonight Show one night, and I used to always say, "Who's on the show?" when they call me, because if it was all starlets, I'd do some music, and if it was all singing acts, I'd do more stand-up. So to balance the show, because the show is the thing, that's what you want. And so they said, well, so-and-so, and Pavarotti. I said, Pavarotti's on the show. They said, yeah, but you probably won't get near him. He'll have a huge entourage. So I went in and I took my usual dressing room, and the one with no windows that Red Fox used to scream about all the time. And Pavarotti was in the next room, so I went over and I knocked on the door, and he was alone. And I introduced myself and sat down, and we talked for about 30 minutes, man. He was the warmest, nicest man. Went out to rehearse, and usually rehearsal at the Tonight Show is the biggest audience of any TV show. It's 500. Usually there's 25 or 30 people in an audience.
Oh, wow.
This is 500. And usually there's one person sitting there, Well, this time, since Pavarotti's on, all the wives of the producers, and so there were like 30, 40 people. So Pavarotti come out to rehearse, and Doc's band went into this Viennese waltz thing, ting, ting, and Pavarotti didn't come in. So Doc stopped, and he said, "What's wrong, maestro?" And Pavarotti, which was always comical to me, when he sang the most perfect Italian, but when he talked, he sounded like Tony the Barber. It was like this, this doesn't fit there. He said, last time I was here, I think you have the monitors out here. Oh, I'm sorry. So they brought out these wedges and put them down, and the band played the introduction again. And he came in with the first note, and the wedges went, boop, 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 and everybody in the audience went, whoa. I mean, he was the dearest man, and he came to my dressing room before the show. He said, "Pietro," I say, "Maestro," he said, "Bocco lupo." Instead of break a leg in opera, they say "Bocco lupo" out of the mouth of the wolf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a dear man. The people that I met that really impressed me are artists, but the ones who were really good people too.
Yes.
Right.
Shecky is one of those people. He's a dear, kind human being. That's why the times we spend together are really precious. And boy, he's when he get in this town, man. He came here in the '50s, and he tore this town up, man. He had a jail cell that was like his private cell. He was in jail so much downtown. He would drink and
Is that true?
Yeah. It was, the first one I heard about was he drove his brand new Cadillac into the fountains at Caesar's Palace.
Oh my God.
The wind was blowing, the fountains were going, and it was slick, and he didn't care. He floored it, and this thing spun around, boom, right in. And the valet kid came running over. Shecky put the window down. He said, "Are you okay, Mr. Green?" Shecky said, "Don't bother with the hot wax." Fountains are mean. Yeah, the stories he tells here, man, are unbelievable.
You want to show another
This
picture?
photo has a title. I'm not sure if you put it or your son put it. What can you tell us about this?
What is it? Oh, that's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's Al, me, and that old trumpet of mine. That's it's all dented and bent, and it's held together with duct tape.
I was gonna ask about the tape.
Yeah, it's got duct tape and a couple other leaks that have like putty in them, plumber's putty in them. And it still plays, and everybody played it. Al Hurt was the only guy that had a comment about it. Al played it, and I said, "What do you think of that horn, Jumbo?" He said, "You got so many leaks in that horn that you could catch pneumonia playing the blues." Yeah, everybody played it. I mean, Louis Armstrong played it. Talk about legends. Rafael Mendez played it. The greatest classical trumpet player of all time. They all played it, man. Harry James.
You did that to them, huh?
Yeah, so I said, you got to play one note on my horn. They'd play a note on it and laugh, and he said, it still works. It still works. We can't believe it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Al was
amazing.
special. He was. I never met a trumpet player in my life, no matter how they played, that when I mentioned his name, they want to genuflect. They say Al Hurt was. He was one of those guys. He wasn't a pure bebop guy, but he played that horn, man. He was the best there was. He could do anything with it.
Yeah. I remember, of course, the Green Hornet theme. Where he's
Which is
yeah,
all double tonguing in that upper register too, which
Yeah.
is real difficult. Boy, he did it like it was nothing. He was
yeah.
the opening. You run into these guys. The opening, before you guys come on the air, you play "Darn That Dream," which is
Yes.
a great
Yeah.
ballad, and I love that song. And I wrote a chart on it for doing with college bands, a big band chart. And in the second chorus, it's like what they call the sock chorus. The first chorus is like a ballad, but there's a trumpet figure in there that goes ba-do, 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 ch-ch-wee, and it's in the key of G, so that's an A to trumpet. It's concert A, that's an A. And so I wrote optional on there, and I was doing it with the Cincinnati Jazz Orchestra.
Okay.
And when you go to work with these bands, they say it's a jazz orchestra, and you get there and you find out it means Dixieland, or it's sort of like a generic term. It's a jazz orchestra, or they do the theme from Peter Gunn. That's the only thing, and that makes it jazz. So So anyway, I handed this chart out, and they rehearse it, and they got a trumpet player named, his name is Wes Orr, O-R-R. He's doesn't leave Cincinnati. He's never been with Woody, or he's never been with Kenton or anything. And he played this thing, and he hit that A above high C like it was in the middle of the staff, just like whap right there. And I had to stop. I said, "What the hell was that?" And the other guy said, "That's Wes, man. It was a killer orchestra. Killer orchestra. They're the best."
It's so funny because, there are a handful of people that become hugely famous, and you realize especially as you travel around, that in every town there's amazing
you find
musicians,
it,
people that could be
I'm
just
gonna
as
take a
big
quick drink.
as anybody.
Please.
I heard that about you.
Yeah. Some of them just don't want to leave home.
Right.
There's a great
Right.
guitar player up in Toronto who just passed away, and his protege is Lorne Lufsky, and he was on the TV show I did, and the band leader Gary said, "I want to bring this kid on, Lorne Lufsky. He's really good." I said, "How old is he, Gary?" He said, "He's 19." I said, "I don't want him." "What do you mean you don't want him? He's a good player." I said, "I don't want to have to be teaching a guy songs, in the middle of a series. I got enough problems. He's 19. He doesn't know any tunes." Well, Gary talked to me. He came on there. He knew every tune I could call in every key,
Wow.
and he ended up playing with Oscar.
Yeah.
Right.
Great player, and nobody down in the States knows him,
Right.
except he played with that Rob McConnell band for a while.
Right. Here's a pretty epic photo right here.
Oh yeah, that's Jerry Lewis, Pat Cooper, me, and Bob Anderson, who is a brilliant act, who's in the wrong generation. He should have been here a generation ago. Bob does impressions, and he does everybody, and he does them better than anybody in the world, and they're so good that you don't appreciate it unless you've actually seen Tony Bennett, Sammy Davis, Frank
Wow.
Sinatra.
Sure.
He does Jerry Vale. He does Jack Jones,
Wow.
and you can't tell the difference. Excuse me. He's brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I meant to ask you, what do you think, and maybe this is a sensitive question,
Yeah,
being a comedian now, because you said you were tutoring some of these younger generation of comics, now we're it seems that we're at a point where everything is we're so sensitive, maybe oversensitive perhaps, that, a word, a phrase, it just could mean, it can make or break a person,
Yeah,
Do you find
it
it
has.
difficult? I look at some old clips of things and I think they probably couldn't say this today.
Yeah, there are routines that I did for years that I couldn't do today. And it's like that with all the older comics that we talk about, we get together. You just can't do them today. But also then there's that other genre, the guys who were shock comics who go on
Right.
stage
Of
and every
course.
word is a foul word. And
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't understand that at all. I mean, Buddy Hackett had the greatest analogy. He said, if it's funny, it's not dirty, and if it's dirty, it's not funny. And that was as good as you can put it. And
Yeah.
Buddy was hilarious, man. He
Oh
was
my
a
gosh,
brilliant comic. And he was he didn't have what Shecky had. Shecky would go on stage and just be naturally funny. I mean, you know, Buddy was like a clinician. Buddy, in fact,
really?
I've had a couple times I've done the Tonight Show, and Buddy would call right after the show played. I'd be home, of course, by then, and Buddy would call and say, when you do that routine about the mechanic, you got to give the guy a name. Don't just say he was a mechanic. Call him Henry or Herb or something.
Oh, wow.
You know, and he was always right. When I'd run it over in my mind, say, he's right. He was a clinician. But he was a strange guy. You never knew which Buddy Hackett you'd get. You could get the nice
we know
dear
some
man.
people like that.
Yeah, or you could get this monster who you
Really?
couldn't even stand to be around, you know.
Wow.
Wow.
But you know, it's interesting that you say it like that about natural versus, you know, clinicians, because musicians are the same way. You know,
Yeah,
there are
exactly.
some people that just any note they play, you know, they just choose it and it comes out and it's perfect.
Well,
and other people just have to shed and shed and shed, and they're fantastic. But
Connie
you know,
Condoli was a perfect example, the trumpet player on Doc's band for all the years. And one night I did this show, and Ed McMahon wasn't there for some reason. And so Doc was taking his part, and Tommy was leading the band. And on one of the breaks, you know, the breaks were fairly long. They do a lot of commercials. The band would always play through them.
Right.
And they played some chart, and Connie Condoli took a solo, and Doc stared at him like he was mesmerized. And he got finished, and Doc looked at me and he said, I would gladly give up at least one testicle if I could just once play one chorus like that. And as good
Wow.
as Doc was,
Yeah.
he was, there's a wonderful story I like to tell, because Doc wouldn't never let me tell it on the show, and I begged him. In his first marriage, he went to Italy on his honeymoon, and they landed in Rome, and they rented a car, a little Fiat, and they told him how to get to town. And when he was driving into town, he had a deja vu experience. He knew exactly where the hotel was, even though he had never been to Rome before. He knew that when he turned a corner, there'd be a white building there. And he was telling his wife this while we were going along. He said, I was here in another life somehow. It was really spooky. And so they, you know, just checked into the hotel and took a little nap, and then they went to dinner. Dinner doesn't open over there till like 10 at night, you know. So they eat dinner, then everybody walks, you know, for like 5 miles after they eat dinner. They walk and talk, and if they get too overweight, they send them to New York. So Doc couldn't sleep. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, he gets up and he grabs his horn, and he drives down to the Coliseum. And he goes, in those days you could get in. He went to the middle of the Coliseum, and he started playing with this incredible sound that filled the Coliseum.
Wow.
It was just unbelievable. You know, it was like a movie. It's just, and he was playing, and he saw the flashlights coming. And he figures, oh, I'm busted, man, but where am I going to run to? You know, so he just kept playing. And when they got close enough so he could see, it was in fact the Italian police, the Carabinieri. But when they got close enough to see, the policemen were crying.
oh
They were
my
crying.
gosh.
They were saying, Bellissimo, Bellissimo. And they made him play for 20 more minutes. Then he took him back to the police station and cooked for him.
Oh
He
my
said, see, if
gosh.
that was in L.A., the SWAT team would have been out with high-powered
gosh.
rifles.
Right. You got to stop.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but he said the culture is different. So he's gone there every year almost for the rest of his life, and he sent me a series of Italian cookbooks, and the first one had said the whole world is Italian. Then the second one said, well, almost. Then he'd continue the sentence on. But he's a magnificent player. Doc is the only guy I know who does everything like perfectly. He stands perfectly. He holds the horn perfectly. His armature is set perfectly. And to him, a double C is like, you know, you go to rehearsal, and Doc would always ask me to stick around after I'd rehearse my thing. He said, stick around, we got some new charts. Bob Florence sent over, and Torrey Zito sent some charts. We want you to hear them. So he's playing, and he's looking at, and he's got four of the greatest trumpet players alive, Johnny Addino, Connie Condoli, Snooky Young, you know, and Doc is playing, and his music is on the piano. And he's down there, and they're up there, and he's playing with one hand. He's playing like this, and he's playing double G's and A's, just like they're in the middle of the staff. And he's turning the music, and he's playing like this. Then he got finished, and I look up at the trumpet section, and Connie says to me, we have to live with this. He said, you know how demoralizing it is, man, to have that kind of facility so casually, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But he plays he practiced all the time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Most musicians don't like to practice. They'll play as many gigs, but they don't like to practice. You know,
Right.
like the Carl Fontana, who's the greatest trombone player Carl couldn't practice more than 5 minutes. He'd get crazy, but he could go and he could work 3 jobs in one
Right.
night, never have any problem. Doc
Right.
was the antithesis of that. Doc liked to
liked-
practice.
Well, he was down here 2 or 3 years ago, and he did a concert, and man, he sounded incredible.
He's incredible. He still has
Yeah.
the same facility. He's
Amazing.
in his 90s.
Yeah.
And he's just a freak, you know.
Yeah, and that's a tough instrument.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
man,
physical.
tell me about it, man. It's you know, it's I'm like sort of the comedy king of all the trumpet players in the world because I was a trumpet player too. So they all relate to me when I work festivals. They all say, "Come on, man, you got to take a picture with me." Nobody will believe me. You're like the 4th trumpet player, you know.
Right.
So all the Wayne Bergeron in L.A. and Ricky Batiste, all those guys.
Yeah.
They got to take a picture with you. And,
Yeah.
Arturo Sandoval, Pete, you're my man. He said, yeah, he was at the jazz festival once, and he had a great band, and of course he had all great trumpet players, and he said, Pete, you got to come up and tell a joke. And I said, no, he says, no, you got to come up. So I couldn't get through the audience, so I went around the back, and I couldn't get through. I was caught in the back. He said, where are you? He said, I'm back here with the normal trumpet players who just have like a double C. These are the normal guys, not
The
you.
normal guys, of course.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's another one of those gifted people.
I think Nikki toured with him for a little bit.
I toured with Arturo for about 2
boy.
years, and I was on his first album when he came to Florida.
Is that right? Yeah, boy, he's something.
Oh yeah, another one of those guys that makes it look just too easy.
Yeah.
Right.
When I first got the call from him, man, he asked about what's the name, the trumpet alto player who just passed away down there.
Oh, Richie Cole.
No.
Oh no, Ira
Trumpet?
Sullivan.
Ira Sullivan, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first time I heard Ira in Chicago. In fact, I was with Stan Kenton, and the drummer with my band, Joey Preston, who was a child protege, worked with Kenton when he was like 12, and we went to see Philly Joe had the group at a little place in Chicago, and Ira Sullivan was. I never heard of Ira Sullivan.
Right.
He played the trumpet. You know, he was
Yeah.
unbelievable. It sounded like somebody somebody you never heard before. He's just unbelievable, like Clifford Brown.
Right.
And then he picked up the sax, and we said, "What the hell is he doing?" He sounded like Charlie Parker on the sax. I mean, he was an amazing guy.
Yeah, he was definitely he was kind of like our angel down here, you know.
Boy, he was.
Just amazing and just a great spirit.
Well, he had a tree trimming company or something too. He started
know
when
that.
he got.
That
Yeah,
I
when
don't
he
know about.
when he moved down from Chicago, he had a problem in Chicago. He had a substance abuse problem.
Oh, okay.
And so he moved to Florida. He got all clean and all straightened out and started a business down. He started working for somebody, and then he started his own business. But I'd have a hero sighting every once in a while. Some musician would call me. I just heard a guy in Florida. You're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, that's Ira, man.
That's hysterical.
He
That's
was
amazing.
He was special.
Well, I
Yeah.
think I'm going to show a few more clips of you in action. So let's get to some more Pete Barbutti,
Woo woo.
or Barbutti, if you
Or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Jay, for asking me to be here with a substitute host the night before the big show. Been gone 2.5 years, and they say, come on back, it'll be good. So here I am. I'm delighted to be here. And, of course, I'm going to play a song because the piano's here with Doc and the band, and I'd mention the guys by name, but nobody knows who they are. Except Tom. Everybody knows Doc, and, of course, the great Tommy Newsom, whose dad was... Yeah, you can applaud for Tommy. Tommy's father, of course, is a musician, his grandfather, so it's a long line of very fine musicians, and it's something to be proud of. Tommy's great-grandfather, he very rarely tells people this, but this is true. His great-great-grandfather, his name is Janko, was a pilot in the Air Force, flew for the French during World War II. This is a true story, and shot down the most famous German pilot, and the guy crashed in Paris, and that Red Baron stuff is a myth. This is true, man. And they put him in a hospital in Paris. He crashed outside Paris, of course. And Tommy's great-great-grandfather, Janko, went to visit him in the hospital. I mean, that's how compassionate the family is, always has been. And he said to the guy, look, I'm sorry I shot you down, man, but war is a drag, and that's the way it is. And I'd shoot you down again if I had to, but I'm sorry you suffer. And the German pilot said, look, Janko, he had his name tag on, you know. He said, I hold no ill feelings, because war is indeed hell, and I would have shot you down. My only regret is I'll never see my fatherland again. And could I ask a favor of you? Well, what's Janko going to say? You know, the guy's never going to make it out of there. So he said, anything you want, man. He said, well, I just found out because of injuries sustained in this crash when you shot me down that they're going to have to amputate my right foot. And could I impose upon you, once that's done, if I have the surgeon wrap that up, would you take it with you? And when you fly over Germany again, would you throw it out of the plane and it would rest on my native soil? Well, this great-great-grandfather, Janko, looks at the guy, figure this is weird, but the hell, it's the last request. So he did it, and he came back to visit him. It was about 3 months later. He didn't think the guy would still be alive. And he said, hey, I did as you asked. I hope in some small way with this terrible looming fate before you that your spirits are slightly buoyed. And the German pilot said, well, they would be, Janko, except... about 2 hours ago, I just found out from the surgeon I'm unable to arrest the infection in that leg. It looks like they're going to have to cut it off to the knee. And could I impose upon you again to take that piece of anatomy with you, wrapped in gauze, of course, and when you fly over Germany, throw it out with the rest of my native soil? Well, Janko figured the guy has gone completely out of it, but maybe it's his last thing he'll ever ask for. So he said, all right, I'll do it. So he did it. Now, I come back to visit him. It was about 6, 7 months later. Isn't that what it was, Tommy? Yeah. Said yes. And he said, look, I did everything you asked, pal. I hope you're feeling a little bit better, at least emotionally. And the German pilot said, well, yeah, I thought I would be too, till about 15 minutes before you got here. The surgeon came in and told me that there's no way they can save that. Now they're going to have to amputate right to the hip. And could I impose upon you once more to take that piece of leg when you... boy, his great-great-grandfather Janko said, hold it right there, pal. I'm on to you. You're trying to escape.
I don't really know any real short jokes. I know a lot of short musicians, but I don't know any short jokes. This is our great piano player, Joe. I would tell you a true story that he told me. You don't have to give him that much applause now. He told me this is a true story. This happened about 20 years ago. It's about 20 years ago, wasn't it, Joe? Yeah. These two girls were walking through Central Park in New York, and they heard this voice, like this noise in the bushes, you know, and they said, what the heck is that? They could hear like just rattling and stuff. And went over and they listened close, they could hear this voice going like, help, help. And they looked down and it was a frog. And they said, man, like how weird, a frog that talks. They couldn't believe it. And they said, how could a frog like be talking, you know? And the frog said, I wasn't always a frog, man. I was a famous piano player. I sold my soul to a witch so I could be a famous piano player. And I worked with Miles Davis, and I worked with Count Basie and Harry James and Stan Kenton. And I sold my soul to a witch, and I asked too much. And the witch turned me into a frog. And the girl said, wow, what a drag, man. You have to be like a frog forever in his stupid bushes there, you know. And the frog said, no, not forever. If you pick me up and kiss me, I'll turn back into a famous piano player. And the one girl, she grabbed that frog, man, stuck it in her pocket, and she started to run. And her girlfriend said, yo, aren't you going to kiss the frog? And she said, hell no, a talking frog's worth a lot more than some stupid piano player.
Oh, boy.
It's true though.
Yes, it is.
It is. The humor's in the truth.
Oh my
She was
gosh.
like flabbergasted with the nose playing.
No, because that must have hurt. I mean, there's just no way around it.
Actually, it didn't.
How is that
You know-
possible?
Yeah, and you know what? I got to the point where I could just like play any song in any key by nose. And it's not much of an accomplishment. It's kind of stupid, like. But then I looked back one day and I thought, you know what? I've worked with some piano players who weren't that good. who had all
I
10
can play
fingers.
better with
Yeah,
two
right.
hands
And
tied
I
behind my
actually
back.
played better with my nose than them. And it was
Exactly.
like, you know, there was a guy in Omaha, and the charts I used to carry, since I always work with beboppers, like, you know, the piano part would just say, like, over the first measure, just say E flat, and it would have 4 slashes. I mean, I don't have to write the chord out like piano music. Then it'd say D minor 7th, you know, it'd say D minor 7th and 4 slash, I mean 4 beats. And I got the music up, and this guy played it like it was 4 quarter notes. It went ling, ling, ling,
Oh,
ling.
gosh.
Instead of, it was like a ballad. And I thought he was putting me on. I thought he was joking with me. And I started laughing, and, you know, I said, man, that's great. So let's try it. And he did it again. It was,
Oh my gosh.
and so, like, there was no use, you know, no use trying to teach him. It wasn't going to,
Wasn't gonna happen.
no. You guys remember, of course, Dick Cantino, the great accordion player. Dick, you know,
I don't
Dick
know
was,
who that is. No.
oh, he was like the king of the accordion. For when Dick was like 15 years old, he won the amateur show that was on the radio. He was making like $10,000 a week when he was 15 back in the 40s. I mean, he was the biggest star in the world. Played Lady of Spain on the accordion. He was unbelievable. And Dick has real complicated charts. And I got a call from a guy in a car dealer in the Tri-City area, like Moline and Iowa, somewhere in the Midwest there. Guy had a couple car dealerships, had a ton of money. Good guy, too. I had worked for him before, and he flies you in first class, or he picks you up with a limo and get to the hotel. He gives you a Cadillac to drive, puts you up for a couple nights, you know, whatever you want, charge it. He's a good guy. And so he called me after he booked me. It was like his Christmas show. And then he said, do you know Dick Cantino? I said, yeah, very well. He's a good friend. He said, well, a lot of people are asking, can we get him? And I said, well, I'll call him and I'll give you his number. You talk to him personally. He said, well, I know you play the accordion. Is that okay to? I said, yeah, I won't play it during my act. Dick is the greatest, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I get there. He picks me up. I'm at the hotel, and I go to rehearsal. And he comes up to me and he said, Dick Cantino's stuck at the airport in San Francisco. It's fogged in, which is normal for San Francisco. And I thought, I said to him, look, don't worry. Dick will do everything in his power to get here. He's a dependable guy. And if he doesn't get here, I'll do some extra time. We'll take care of your audience. So you don't have to worry that, you know, it'll be a letdown. We'll be fine. So I go in to rehearse, and it's like 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, 2 saxes, piano, bass, and drums. And the piano player is a little old lady, and the band leader is a guy who's totally bald, and he has hair painted on his head with a marking pen. Like.
No.
And it's one of those things where you can't stop looking at it. And so I put up a chart. You know, there's a rotation. You put up something reasonable, so you can judge them, so you know
Sure.
what to pull out next. You know,
Yeah.
it's something you develop. So I pull out a chart and I count it off, and they can't play. It's like the worst musicians you ever heard in your life. It's like if you went to the bus station and got some guys, hey, I need a trumpet player and a piano. They're terrible. And so I know from experience that if I start getting mad and yelling at them, try it again and yelling at them,
Yeah.
if they can't play at 1 in the afternoon, they can't play at 9 o'clock at
Yeah,
night.
yeah, yeah.
There's not going to be a miracle here, you know. And then they're just going to sit there on the stage scowling because I yelled at them, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a thing I do. I say, wait a minute, let me see those charts. Oh, these aren't the right charts. The airlines must have lost these charts. These are like some old charts. And they were saying, yeah, they thought there was something wrong with that. Saying, yeah. So I figure I'm okay, you know. But Dick is like all music, you know, wall-to-wall music.
Oh gosh.
So then I go home, I take a shower, I get cleaned, I eat some dinner, I come to the show, and I go back there. And Dick has now arrived, and he came from the airport right to the club. and he's in the back room rehearsing with this man having a talkover. He's got all these charts folded way out. He's saying, see, bar 41, there's a Lia stesso, and then it homodulates to the E flat, and they're all looking at the charts going, They can't play at all. And so they go on stage, and Dick and I had this relationship for years. When I call on the phone and say hello, he starts laughing in anticipation of, like, I'm going to do something funny.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I say hello, he breaks up like it. And so I say to Dick, when the band goes out, I say, Dick, these guys can't play. And he starts laughing like hell. So he said, what do you mean they can't play? I said, they're the worst. He said, and then after I kept pounding it into him, he said, no, he says, you're just spoiled. You used to be in Vegas or on the Tonight Show where you got the best musicians in the world, and now you're here, and I said, Dick, they're not bad. They're the worst. So he goes out and he starts with this very up tempo, like 2-beat thing, and he's playing this little, and the band is with him for about 4 or 5 bars. Then they start dropping out one at a time until nobody's left. He's playing by himself. Then when they get to a recognizable part, they start coming in one at a time, and they play with him for a few bars, and they drop out. And I looked out there, and with the spotlight shining, Dick was playing the accordion. He had his head down, and the sweat was bouncing off the accordion. And I wanted to freeze that in my memory, that we've all been there with that band that can't play, I worked the first cruise ship I worked, the band was from Poland.
Yeah.
And only the band leader spoke English, And so I'm used to turning around and saying, give me some blues in B flat,
Right.
And they'll play it, maybe not good or whatever, depending on the musical level. But I turn around and so I say, give me some blues in B flat. And this guy turns to the band. He says, Maskatichka botobisa, wanawakuchka. This goes on. It's the blues in B flat is like the introduction. And then they say, okay. And then they played it. And even when they played my charts, they played all the right notes, but it was terrible. And during the time, they didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I said to them, think of Count Basie. And they said, who?
Oh, gosh.
And from that
That's when you
point
know
on,
you're in trouble.
from that point on, I just said, do the best you can. And I just, faked
They
the
heard
rest
Count
of it.
Dracula. That's
Yeah,
what-
right. I did what I did for the rest of my life.
Well, here's a great clip of you playing accordion. You're no slouch, mister.
Oh,
Yeah.
Check this out.
I brung the old accordion out here because it's a little recognized instrument today in the field of jazz music, and people don't even know how you put the accordion on. I'd like to show you, first of all, how you do put the accordion on. You say, hey, accordion, you're too much. You're terrific. Putting your accordion on. Now, I'd like to show you how you put the accordion down. Hey, man, you're from Cleveland, huh? Well, I like to play. Oh, will you hear this? A train, huh? A train. 56 Chevy station wagon. Canadian Pacific diesel engine. A Boeing 720B. Boeing 720B flat. Thunder. Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls from the American side. Diesel. Shoes. Florsheim shoes. Kenny shoes. Tennis shoes. Mush shoes. Mush shoes. Okay. No. Sodium pentothal. Calcium phosphate. Iron dioxide. Mosquito ears. Green sweat socks. Pizza. Well, I guess I could do over 100 of those. Now I got to do one little bit of a serious song on accordion, because if I don't, a lot of people will say, well, they get mad. They say, we was in here and we saw you horsing around with that accordion, I'll break your back. And so I do a little bit of a beautiful old ballad. I think we all know this song. It's a beautiful song called Moonlight in Vermont. You guys know this song? How does it go? Because I forgot it. Okay, this is a nice song. I'm just kidding. The guys know it's a little number in E flat, if those of you at home are keeping score. And that means all the B's and E's and A's are flat. Did you guys know that? Yeah. No. A number called Moonlight in Vermont. I'd like to get serious for you here for a minute. We hope you enjoy a little serious music. You ready, orchestra? Let her go! Hey! Shouldn't it be louder? 3, 4. All right, I can drive. There's an arranger, the guys in the band know him. I want to credit him with this joke he told me. His name is Pete Myers, an excellent writer, and he told me a brilliant joke. It's kind of a musician joke, but everybody will understand it. And it's the real kind of the story of life. It's about a saxophone player who moved to London, and boy, he just wasn't getting any work. I mean, things were really going bad for him, you know. And so he just every day just sit around the house and practice his horns. So one day he woke up and it had stopped raining in London. And boy, this was like a whole new thing to him. And he threw open the window, and down from one end of the horizon to the other, the most magnificent rainbow. It was like God saying to him, the whole world is going to change. And he stared at it for what seemed like hours. And he looked down, and there was his tenor sax, and the sun sort of glistening. And he thought, dare I, or would it be that too melodramatic? And he said, no, I don't care. This is real. He picked up the horn, threw open the window, and started playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow on his saxophone. Somewhere, and a crowd started to gather down below. They could hear him, and they said, that's magnificent. The crowd got bigger. And he got to the middle part of the song, you know, the bridge, and he forgot it. He says, well, he said, he don't know how it happened. Like, he had never forgotten it before. He said, well, I'll start at the beginning again. Maybe I'll remember it this time. And he started at the beginning somewhere, and he got to the middle again, just drew a blank. He said, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't, and the people down below started saying, play the middle part. They started to get hostile. And he said, wait a minute, man, I forgot it. They said, play it. And he said, oh, wait, I'll try it. He went from the beginning again like 20 times. He gets to the middle part, call it the bridge, and he couldn't remember it. And the people were getting hostile. Play it, you turkey! So he said, I don't know. And he threw the saxophone out, and they started to boo. And this was all he could take because the beginning of the day was so magnificent. And he threw himself out the window and hit the pavement and broke. And boy, in his last couple seconds on Earth as he was passing on to his reward, man, the ambulance pulled up, and the siren on the ambulance was going, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
It's all the delivery.
Yeah, that's true. I was doing the Tonight Show that night and went to the cafeteria, that Carson used to joke about all the time. And
the commissary.
Yeah, the commissary.
Yeah.
And Pete Myers, I've known Pete and his wife Laurie for a long time. And he didn't tell it like a joke. He was telling it like as if, you know, because he's English, Pete is.
Yeah.
He was telling it like, you ever notice the ambulance? And I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I just sort of sat in the dressing room for a couple of minutes and put it together. And, you know, I finished taping the show at like 6:30 in Burbank, and I catch the 7 o'clock flight to Vegas. I mean, the Burbank airport is like next to NBC there, almost right up the street. So they'd have a limo waiting for you. You know, it was Contra, they trade out. And so I'd go out the back door and get in the limo, and the guy would take me. I get on the 7 o'clock flight. I'm home at 8. I'm 15 minutes from the airport. So like by 8:30, I'm in the house. Well, that's 11:30 in New York. And the phone calls start coming in. Don Ferguquist, the trumpet player. I mean, everybody in New York was calling me, man, that joke, that's the worst thing you've ever done in your life. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. Yeah, that was it. Somehow dare you, you know.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
a good one. It's a
It
good
is
one.
so good.
That's one of my favorite stories. Yeah, it really is.
So now that things are opening up, are you
Yeah. I'm going to do the Arizona Jazz Festival, and I'm going to do a concert up in Denver,
okay?
and then I have some dates coming in California. Those theaters, they have like a whole chain of theaters up and down the coast, and you know they start in L.A. and go all the way up the top, and they're good audiences. They're almost always sold out. You know.
Well, you know, getting to just hearing the clip of you playing Moonlight in Vermont. I mean, you're such a really tasteful player. You know,
well,
in
thank
between
you.
the jokes, you know, it's you know, I wish there was more out there of you actually, you know, of the music. You know, I guess I'm the opposite of your agent that said quit the music.
Yeah.
The jokes. Not that I want you to quit the jokes, but
Yeah.
more music, please.
Yeah, well, that'd be just fine with me. You know, I mean, I just love to play. Unfortunately, I didn't play as much, you know, from the time my wife got sick. It was like
Sure.
so all engaging that I just didn't
Oh,
get
absolutely.
to play enough. But yeah, I sure miss it. They used to have in Vegas here, they'd have the Kicks bands, you know, and the Union Hall had a big they had a big stage, and there was a grand piano with a bass fiddle and a set of drums, and so nobody
Yeah.
had to bring anything. You know? And the guys in the house band, you know, they'd play for the big stars, and there'd be a midnight show was over at 1:20, 1:25 they'd be at the Union Hall,
Right.
and they'd play until noon for nothing. You know, playing all these experimental charts that people would send up from L.A. and in from New York, and Sammy Nistico charts, and they, oh
Yeah.
man, you know, Claire Fisher, all those things, and they'd play all night long. The best musicians in the world, you know, Buddy Childers, who was on the Kenton Band for years, all the great trumpet players, Sam Noto, all the great trombone, Carl Fontana. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it was just everybody was here in town, and they were working at least 2 gigs, all the good players. You know, they'd work a show at 8 and 12 in the main room, then they do a lounge show at 10 and 2.
Wow.
So they were doing, you know, they were making like $1,500 a week back in the 60s
Yeah,
for a
wow.
musician. Plus they had all the benefits and everything, you know.
Right.
Of course.
That's the sad thing about the union, you know, kind
Well,
of
yeah, I know.
dying, you know. That was,
Yeah, and someday it'll come back. You know, I foresee this, that someday some young guy's going to graduate from hotel management school, and he's going to come out here, and he's going to be sitting around, and they're going to have a meeting. He says, I have this idea. He says, why don't we hire like a full orchestra and have them on stage? You know, like with these.
From your lips.
It's
Yes.
Whoa, a full orchestra.
Can you
Whoa,
imagine?
what a great idea, you know.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Right.
gosh.
Yeah. Has to come full circle.
Well, there really is
Yeah,
nothing like
yeah.
seeing that, being a part of that. It's,
Yeah, I
it's,
know.
It's an amazing.
But you know, Wendy,
thing.
we lived through a greatest era. This was the equal of the Renaissance in Florence, Italy.
Yeah.
When Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Raphael, Botticelli, when they were all there at the same time, each
Yeah.
one of them a genius, and you know, Giuseppe Verdi and
Yeah.
Puccini and Rossini, they were all writing these incredible works of art that lived for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And they were all there at the same time. It's like some bolt of lightning hit the world or something.
true.
And we saw that happen in America. It came
Yeah.
from spirituals.
Right.
It came
Right.
up to the next thing. And there's an interesting book that somebody sent me, a trumpet player out in New York, Nikki sent me, that says that there was an era in New Orleans when there was a huge influx of Sicilians who were fishermen. They settled in New Orleans when they migrated to America because it was a fishing village and they could earn a living there.
Yeah.
But many of them were musicians, and they collaborated with the black musicians. They didn't have the same prejudice because they weren't exposed to them.
Right.
And they could collaborate with them, and they taught them how to read music and how to add a certain dimension to it. And so this was the melding of that. I mean, so that went on, and then it came up to ragtime, and then it came up to Dixieland, came up to swing, and Benny Goodman and Woody, and it came up to the Kenton Orchestra, and then it came up to bebop, and you know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it kind of stopped there. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
My favorite musician joke of today is about the kid who calls his dad at home or at work. And he says, "Dad," he says, "I took my first guitar lesson today. I learned the names of the first 2 strings." And his dad says, "Oh, that's wonderful. When I get home from work, you can show me." The kid said, "I can't show you tonight. I have a gig." And it wouldn't be
Again,
that
another
funny. It's
sad, but true.
Yeah, right. There's a sadness to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh
I know.
my God, it is true.
It is. We have one more clip that we're going to show, and then
Okay.
we'll come back and try and wrap this. I feel like with your life, your career,
I know,
we have not
we
even
could keep
scratched the
talking
surface.
all night.
I know we have.
You people are just lonely. That's all.
Well, that too. That too.
Here we go.
I don't really care. For those people who watch PBS, I've also added a little Beethoven Sonata, so that people who enjoy Beethoven, because a lot of people think Beethoven was no big deal. They say, okay, he wrote a couple dumb songs and sold some records. No, sir. No, sir. That was Neil Diamond. Beethoven was a genius, and nobody believed in him, but he believed in himself. And I think that's advice to all the young musicians. And Beethoven's own wife didn't believe in him. He said to his own wife, he says, someday I'm going to write a symphony. She said, you're going to write a symphony?
Yes,
Yeah, that
he
was
can
the
play.
Woody Herman. That was the Woody Herman concert
Amazing.
at some university in Texas. It was Woody's, I think, anniversary, 50th year on the road or something like that. Woody, he was a boy. Woody was a special guy. He was a dear, kind, wonderful man, and it was a privilege to know him.
Well, you have known just about everybody.
You know what? To this day, I'm still. I sit back and I'm still surprised because I grew up, you know, in a small town without knowing anybody important, and I got to meet these people, and I was more surprised that they knew who I was than I know who people were. You know, Woody Herman. I mean, man, who didn't know? But Woody knew who I was, and that shocked me. Like, how could you know who I am? You know, I'm nobody compared to you. And
Well, you found such a smart and funny way of incorporating music, and that is such a rare thing. Like a jazz musician, you know, comedian. I mean, that's just so crazy. So
yeah,
You know,
I'm
and you
really
just-
the only one out there. And
yeah, and you found a way to just really make it so funny that you could slip the music right past. Most
yeah, well, that's
everybody.
what it is. The spoonful of sugar theory.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I do feel like this, we have to have a part 2 at some point.
Yes.
Or you know what? Just let this whole damn pandemic thing finally blow over and we'll go watch him.
Yeah, and or we bring you down here because
That'd be fine.
When was
That'd
the
be
last time
fine.
you've been down here?
Oh, wow, a long time ago. It was the last time I worked Florida was with, we did a tour, it was James Darren
Okay.
and myself and an unknown singer from New York and a big orchestra, and we did a bunch of theaters down there. It was fun with big crowds and everything. It was
Oh,
fun.
yes.
You're due.
Yeah.
And we had a request for the fourth trumpet player.
Yeah, I think that might have escaped me. We don't have it pulled up. But you know what? After the show's over, YouTube,
Has
Barb
them
Beauty,
all.
Fourth
Yeah,
Trumpet,
they have that,
it's
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It is funny as hell.
Thank you.
Did you write most of your material?
Yeah, all of it. Yeah,
Wow.
all of it. Now there's some jokes I tell where I
Right, like
I
the
come up with a
rainbow.
concept, or I hear somebody say something and I say, wow, that could turn into something interesting, you know, and I
Right.
put it all together. But yeah, everything else is, and I can't write on a typewriter a routine and then go do it on the stage. That doesn't work. I have to do what I do in front of people, and it
just
has
kind
to
of evolves.
Yeah, it starts
develops.
and then it's like vaudeville was. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But jazz and humor are very,
True.
very similar. Even then, I remember working with one of the big bands one time, and the tenor player said to me, "You know what?" He says, "You're like a horn player. You go up and take a solo." He says,
Right.
and then you go back and you go and you do some music, and then you go out and play a solo again. He
Yeah.
said it's just like that. But yeah, they're so similar because with humor, you take, like when you're telling a story, like the one about the German pilot or whatever, you have to start with something that's believable.
Right.
And you start, if somebody is there that they know and it's his uncle or something, there's a believability to
Yeah.
that he wouldn't just say that, you know. And so you get that, and you get them leaning in one direction. And that's it's just like jazz is. You play a chorus and you improvise, then you go here and you go here.
take it
and I
further
do the
and
same
further.
thing. Yeah. I you know, when I've never done two shows alike in my life. You know, I've always said we'll start. I used to do an opening number, and I think it was I love being here with you.
Right.
You know, it's an old song.
Yeah.
And the bridge is like, I love it when you laugh. I love your applause. I love it when you stand up and holler. I love it so much being here with you that I'm even going to give you $1. And I'd hand the guy ringside $1. You know, then I'd keep walking away and keep singing. I love the North. I love the South. And then I'd just stop singing. And the band would fade out and they say, what's wrong? What happened? I said, I'll tell you what's wrong. He said, he took the goddamn dollar, this guy, you know. And I get furious. Says, I'm doing it like a joke. I'm out of bucket. I didn't even get to say hello. And the guy tried to give it back. I said, oh, no. You know.
Right.
So is it, you know, if you start off like that, it's they see where you're coming from. And,
Yeah.
But it's like being a jazz player. You
Right.
take a
You
chorus.
improvise, yeah.
Yeah, you improvise, yeah.
Well, you made it look easy,
Yes.
and I get the sense that you have enjoyed your career
Oh, man.
and
I
are
have-
still enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I am. I you know, I still run into people at airports even and say, man, I used to, You know, and even entertainers, they say, especially young ones, man, I used to sneak out of bed and watch you on the Tonight Show. I'd peek around the corner, my dad would have you on, and you know.
Yeah.
And even a couple of people, I said, Ryan O'Neal stopped me once. He's married to Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
And he said, we looked through the TV guide. If you're going to be on, we cancel everything for that night.
Sure.
Wow.
I said, wow, that's pretty special.
Kind of. Well, Wendy and I are prone to getting out and doing road gigs on a spur of the moment. So with road trips, I mean. So with any luck, it'll work out, and we can catch one of those festivals that you're going to be doing. And that's happening later this year, or is this for
In fact, I may do the one I've done it before down at Ocean Shores, Georgia or Alabama or someplace.
Okay.
There you go.
Which is right next to Pensacola.
Well, how would we find out?
I'll stay in touch and let you know.
Yeah.
I'll
Please
stay
do.
in touch.
It would be just great to see you in action,
Okay.
and not doing virtual things anymore.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be the best.
Just to, I want to mention one more thing, because we were talking about the live music. You were talking about Vegas. I feel like with the whole pandemic, even just months into it, the appreciation for live music just grew, because
I think
you
so
were
too.
forced to not have it. And
Yeah.
so now I think, if there's ever a time that we're all going to get gigs,
Oh, knock on wood.
I think.
You can say you said it right.
Yeah. Anyway, Pete, thank you so very
Yes.
It
much.
was my pleasure.
It was a sure joy.
A joy and an honor, and we'll be on the lookout to see what you're up to next.
Okay, thank you very much for this. I appreciate this.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Pete Barbutti,
So
folks.
fun. Oh my gosh. Crazy fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Want to say this, I didn't do it during the whole show, but please support our musicians. Like we treat this night as a gig for our musicians, and Pete was so generous of giving of his time that we definitely like to give back as much as we can. So please support our musicians. You have to just we have a virtual tip jar set up. Text the word tip jar to the number 44321. The first $100 will be matched, and then at the end of the night, which is soon, we're gonna send a check or PayPal actually directly to Pete. We don't keep any of it. It goes directly to our musicians. So please help support our musicians. We all appreciate it so much. Want to thank our partners in this, without we will not be able to do it. The Sunshine Jazz Organization at sunshinejazz.org. And they have a Sunday brunch every Sunday. Well, that's why it's a Sunday brunch, I guess. So let's hear more about that. Go check.
Sunshine Jazz Organization is proud to be presenting world-renowned steel pan maestro Othello Molino at weekly Sunday jazz brunch from noon to 3 p.m. at KC Healthy Cooking, located on a spacious outdoor patio at 1900 Biscayne Boulevard, serving an excellent gourmet Caribbean menu and great jazz, led by Lloyd Hawkins and Ted McDermott. As Alice Day would say, hope to see your face in the place.
Yep. We've got also our partner Gold Coast Jazz Society, and they have a website, goldcoastjazz.org, which you can check out. And we have South Florida Jazz. Their website is southfloridajazz.org, and of course the Miami Jazz Cooperative at miamijazz.org. All of us partner together to do this Monday night show each and every week for the last little over a year since this craziness happened, and we thank you so much for your support and joining us. Want to let you know what's coming up, because we got some good stuff coming up. Actually, then our next chain of Mondays are all live, so this is gonna be really exciting. So next Monday night, June 21st, is a CD release and celebration with Tim Jago and Troy Roberts. That should be amazing. Really looking forward to that.
And we close out June.
We close out June with Abstract Citizen, which is a live performance featuring Aaron Lebos and Justine Garcia. makes me feel old because I knew Justine when she was like in the 2nd grade. She went to school with my son, and to see now that she's a singer in her own right doing it is really, really, really exciting. So that's going to be really exciting. This is a brand new kind of collaboration of Aaron Lebos's, and so they'll be playing live. And in July, we also have, we're going to have Nicole Yarling. We're going to have Tom McCormick.
Yep.
We're going to have, who else? Oh, we have a special, we're going to have a special tribute and feature for Matt Bonelli.
Yes.
So we're really
Yes.
excited about that. So,
Good stuff
stick
coming up.
around.
Yeah.
Every Monday night, we're here doing it. Stay safe out there, and we hope to see you live and in person very soon.
Good night.
Good night.